What? Oh, there's a camera. Are you recording?
I had to do it once.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the JodoCast. We're at Adepticon, last day of the show, and I'm sure you all saw all of the crazy Legion announcements, and so I have wrangled a couple of fine gentlemen here.
A couple of wills.
Yeah.
Wheels.
Is there a guardian of the wills?
Guardians of the Wheels.
No one guards us. We're just left to free roam.
Maybe Summer.
We're cage-free wills.
I don't know.
No, she's not guarding us.
So we're gonna ask them stuff about Legion, starting with the new rule set's been out for coming up on a year now, right?
Yeah, I mean, close to. We released it in July last year, so we're getting close.
Time is an illusion as far as
It is. It's true.
Especially post 2020, time has lost all meaning.
For real.
How's the reception from the player base been?
I mean, it seems like it's been pretty good overall. Like, we got a ton of people playing here. We've seen a lot of excitement online about it. I think everyone is chomping at the bit to see the April 15th update, where they'll get all of the cards in the new format and all of that stuff, along with some of those last remaining rebalances. So, yeah, overall, I've been very happy with it. I don't know if Pagani he's going to be like, no, unhappy, completely, never happy. I'm a developer, I'm cranky.
I mean, good cop, bad cop interview style.
Exactly.
No, I mean, look, I'm very happy with it, but I'm of the opinion, as Shick has just pointed out, that we can always do better, and we're going to continue to do better, and there's feedback, and I love feedback and data, so let's do it. Let's take it, and let's make it better as we go forward.
Speaking of April 15th, so exactly what can everybody expect on the 15th? Is it just the final cards that need updated, or is there going to be any new like battle forces or any
Does Pagani remember what he did?
Well, wait, look, we do this stuff so far in the future, and then like now it's just coming out now. No, so it's mostly going to be sort of the finishing of the rebalances. So there are as Shick said, few things that are left. We showed some of those even at the keynote. There are some rulebook updates that are going to do some clarifying on the wording and things like that. We are changing some of the terms which were shown in some of the promo cards. So like at is changing to within.
Okay.
Within is now completely within, and beyond is now not within. That gives you a very consistent rules language. It's the words mean exactly what they mean, because we see a lot of people, and this is sort of also why there's timing clauses on command cards now that are like until the end of the round and that kind of stuff. We saw lots of questions that were like, what does at mean?
Yeah, like been playing Legion since day one. Just like the timing window of a command card's effect was always a thing people are always asking.
We see it all the time in the social media posts, right? We see it on Facebook, we see it in the Discords and stuff, especially when it's new players coming in.
Right.
So by clarifying all that and putting it directly on the card, we can remove confusion. So that's really a lot of what the cleanup that's coming on the 15th is about, is removing confusion, having consistent terminology, and doing that kind of stuff. So we have applied that wording to the whole game, so everything.
Do all of the new cards have new art, or is a lot of them...
I believe
it's like 85% to 90% have new art.
A significant percentage.
If it was art done before the transition where we took over stewardship, it's going to be new. If it was stuff that we did, some of the things we did, we were happy with and felt like it fit the new kind of look for the Legion art, and so we stuck with that. But there were pieces that we went back as well and were like, let's fix this as well. I also want to point out that in that update on the 15th, there's also going to be the new keywords that everyone's asking about from the card reveals.
Yes.
So April 15th, you'll find out what your Shin Mastery does. You'll find out what One Step Ahead does. I think there might be a couple others that have been shown that people are also wondering about, but those are the two that I know are currently in contention.
So that was a great segue to my next question, which is about the new rules and the visual, like basically the new... Can you talk about the visual or the inspiration about the design for the new visuals of the whole, not just the artwork, but the new logo?
Yeah. So I mean, as we sat down and we kind of looked at everything and knew we were going to be doing this multilingual refresh, some of the visual design was based off of the fact that it has to be translated into 4 languages, and those 4 languages have to be easy to put into the product, right? Whether that's finding space in the box for them, or knowing that the cards are going to need to be like fully translated. We want to keep that process easy and simplistic, right? We want to keep it quick for everyone to do. It also gives us flexibility when there's not reminder text, and not have to worry about the fact that you have like busted reminder text that's going to confuse people as you like adjust and change rules. We handed everything over to our incredible graphic designer, Ryan Ritter. and he just went to town. Like we were like, make the next generation of Legion. He was involved at Fantasy Flight with the original Legion, so he had a really good foundation of like where the process started, and we wanted him to be the one to take it into the future, and he started just giving us stuff after stuff after stuff. And our real goal was to just like, we wanted a little bit more pop on the branding and the packaging, right? A little more color in the logo.
I love it.
And put it together right. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some people like will love it. Some people will be like, oh, I kind of like the old simpler style, you know, the more straightforward like logo. But for us, it's all about like reminding, like when you come to Legion for the very first time, we want you to be like, oh, this looks exciting, this looks like a game, I want to pick this up, right? And we find that is triggered in a lot of people by having like a pop of color and kind of having more of that game fun product feel. And so we like to put some of that stuff in there, and Ryan did a really great job of doing all that. And then of course the card designs, some of that was really driven by development. You wanted to get language and like visual language and user experience and all that like streamlined. But we also of course had to keep a really big part in mind of the localization and the process that would go in for that. And so, you know, the way in which the text is laid out, the way in which like some of those design elements are, is definitely in line with, okay, this is going to be a multilingual product. We want to be able to translate it into as many languages as possible. What does that mean, and how are some of the restrictions for, you know, black plate replacement is the process by which that stuff is done. And for anyone who's ever had to deal with black plate replacement, it has a lot of ridiculous rules that you have to follow, or it doesn't work.
Maybe to explain that just a tiny little bit, black plate replacement is essentially they print the whole card and then they print the black, so that when it changes languages, you only have to change one plate when you're printing cards instead of all different plates. So there's a lot of that taken into account for how the cards are designed and stuff. And then development did a lot of research and work on the user interface and user experience side of the cards. So you notice all the like army building stuff is on the back of the card instead of the front of the card as well, so that we can put larger art and more information, more clear information on the front of the card for things that you're going to use during the game, and then on the back of the card you have all the army building points,
pre-game
upgrades, all the pre-game stuff on that side. And then we also did things like we moved the dice from being individual dice symbols to a symbol with a number, because I mean, some people roll a lot of dice. So you're like, there's 8 of them. How many of them are there? So you got to count it every time, or you got to learn it. Where it's just a number, you can just read it. Things like that. We're all taking into consideration of these things.
So I actually can't answer this next question. It was going to be a very weird type of interview. But I just want to bring this question up because one of our viewers was asking it, but it's been answered, and I'll tell them where to find it. This says, can you address the concerns fans of the game have with the rate at which projects are restocked and hit shelves? I would say, please rewatch the studio update, which is on our channel, because that's all covered in there.
Quick recap. So because we're doing this big repackaging to multilingual, we're also looking at resculpting a lot of the soft plastic and the hard plastic, all this stuff. We had to make sure that the older product, the original product, had enough time to move out of shelves, right? The last thing you want to do is have a bunch of original product and then be like, here's all the new product, and then retailers kind of are double stocked, or they won't bring in the new stuff, or they have to fire sale the old stuff. That's not fun. Like a lot of us, Pagani was a store owner. I worked very closely as like TO and miniature specialist in my store when I was in high school. Like we know those kinds of pain points for stores, and so unfortunately for the player base, right, for the process, we had to let that stuff go kind of burn out of stock, which means that there is a little bit of time where it may not be available in all areas, but that is by design. And so what we shared in the update, on the roadmap, and you can probably find it online, is there's a big card that says, here's the roadmap for all the reissues. So everything that was from the original line that hasn't come back in stock or been announced is on that map. Hopefully that gives you a way to kind of like mark out, okay, here's where it's coming. We're being very aggressive on that stuff because we want new players and existing players to be able to, you know, have access to it as fast as possible. There is limitations in the production. Like we can only make so many things out of our factories and things like that. So it is a bit of a process. There is a roadmap. There's a road to drive. But yes, so unfortunately where we are now is by design to make room on shelves for Legion to be as successful as possible with the new products that are coming and the reissues that are coming. And those include all the repacks, right? So if it's a core unit that went up to a larger squad size, you're gonna see that unit be reissued in that larger squad size and things like that.
way back when AMG took stewardship of Legion, I remember there being some talk of like a Vader Down type scenario.
Yeah,
Whatever happened to that?
We probably got a little too excited is what happened to that. We actually have several working versions of it, and I say working in that you can play them, not that they work.
They're good.
Yeah. And so we kind of assumed that we had ideas that would work better than they did, and then what happened was that kind of got backburnered because we had to really dive into everything else. So the original concept
the top priority?
It was not the top priority, unfortunately. I would love to go back to it. I think maybe now we have more knowledge and understanding, and maybe a clever way to do it at a smaller scale, or maybe not. Maybe we can do it at a big scale. But it just kind of like we started big. We just kind of started stalling out on it. We're like, okay, this isn't working. We got to move on to like
we have
other things.
We have a certain amount of development resources that we have, right? And there was a judgment call that was eventually made that was, do we finish Vader Down or do we start on this
everything
whole
else
process? Do we start on new units? Do we do those kind of things? Never say never. So maybe someday we will see.
Of the products that were announced on Friday, which were your favorite to work on?
Definitely Hondo.
Yeah?
That guy is a mad lad.
He's quite nuts.
Like the command cards where he's telling stories and stuff, it was just a fun, like, we were sitting there, we were like, well, what does Hondo do, right? Like, what is his command structure? It's like, well, he doesn't have one. So what are these command cards going to do? Oh, he's going to distract his own people and other people, and like, it just, I don't know. It was a really fun one to figure out and come up with to create a really interesting and very, very different character that is such a fan favorite, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we nailed it. Hopefully we didn't nail it. Ooh, sorry. Chat. Wham! Wow! Nailed it. Yeah, that was my favorite for sure.
I picked the wheel bikes, like just because I love speed, and anytime I can get like a motorcycle style like murder machine on the table, I find it really fun. Also from the design and the sculpting and the painting aspect, like all of the miniature design, like those ones were just incredible to watch come together. Every time you'd see something, in the studio, and it would be kind of getting closer to finish, you're like, oh my gosh, this thing's amazing. They'd be like, yeah, that's not the finished version though. And you're like, what? Like, yeah, it's missing a bunch of details. And then you come back, you'd see it again, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, like they're just so cool. I think they're just so visually striking. They're one of those units that really stands out as like Star Wars. Like they're a showstopper. When you see it and you have to look at it.
They're fantastic. The first thing I thought also was like, now we need a terrain pack that's like sweet ramps.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the ramp expansion. I'm in.
Maybe it's the same answer, but which of those was the most difficult to land on the final design for?
So, specifically the Weequay Pirates, we talked about this in other interviews, how those were started a very long time ago, and they were a very large unit, so they rolled a lot of attack dice. And before we had fully solidified the new cover system and things like that, they were a very difficult unit to get right, where they were rolling so many dice, they were able to easily overcome the old cover system. That unit went through a lot of iterations and a lot of changes, and I think it ended up in a really, really good spot, but that one was a lot.
Yeah, outside of the Weequays, I would probably say the new mounted commanders were certainly challenging to like figure out exactly where their place was, and how to differentiate them from their non-mounted versions. We just didn't want to be like, oh, this is Grievous but way better because he's faster, right? Or this is Luke, Commander Luke, always way better because he's now on a Tauntaun. And so we really got to play with some different archetypes for those commanders and things, and I think like some people will be surprised where those kind of shook out in terms of like what you expect versus a little bit of what the character does. And we kept the core identities, but we wanted to be like, okay, if you want to play this kind of army style, you might take this commander, and if you want to play this army style, this commander fits in, and things like that. And I'm always happy to see that stuff, because I feel like we always talk about the most important thing to these games is choice and options, right? We want players to have a wide variety of choice and ways to customize their strategies, their tactics, their armies in the way that they want. And so I think it was like working through that process, because where we started was, oh, it's just this character on a thing that makes them faster, and we were quickly like, that won't fly, that can't work. So then we had to have some really cool conversations about, okay, what does this character do? What kind of role can they fill? What role do they fill? What role can they fill that's different? And then how do we make sure that players are still getting, the Star Wars dream out of them? Because it's not enough to just say like, well, we can't have Luke running in there and smacking things with lightsabers when that's all I want on a Tauntaun, because that's been my dream since Super Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. So he's got to be able to do that, but let's make sure that he does other things so he's not just stomping on like Commander Luke's kind of role as that frontline Vanguard guy.
It was very interesting to find ways to create second versions of characters that are very different, but still feel like the character. Because, like, Commander Luke has a very specific feel. He's the commander. He's learning how to use his lightsaber. He's learning how to use the Force. He's doing all these kind of things. Him on the Tauntaun has to be very different from all of that, or it's just, as Shick said, the same guy on a Tauntaun.
So we kind of
cool, but not as exciting.
Yeah. So we kind of wound up leaning into that growth of like, he's not as brash and impetuous as he was in A New Hope. He's obviously become a pretty esteemed commander within the Rebel Alliance, right? But he's not that fully like lone Jedi. So where do you take that? And he becomes more of a general, even though he's a commander still, leading his troops, right? And kind of being a bit more strategic while also able to get in there and mix it up.
Thing that just popped into my mind. Tauntauns have little T-Rex arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to put Luke's Tauntaun, give him the Tauntaun a lightsaber.
Oh yeah,
Excellent.
That'd be even better.
Yeah.
Tauntaun with a lightsaber. That's a horror movie waiting to be made.
So speaking of new characters, new types of characters, of all the ones that are moved from soft plastic to hard plastic, which like resculpt, repose has been your favorite glow up, if you want to call it that?
I really like the new Anakin. It's so dynamic. He's flying through the air. He's got his lightsaber out, and I feel like that is the pose that you see the most him flying around in Clone Wars and stuff. So that one's my favorite, I think.
I mean, I'm kind of torn between the new Vader, which just has this really imposing presence, despite the fact that he is very.
He's just ready.
Like he's just
ready.
He's pretty. From a miniatures design standpoint, he kind of breaks a lot of the rules that we usually have, which is he's just standing there, very straight, very still. There's almost no dynamic movement to him, but like it just works for him. He feels absolutely terrifying. So I really like that one. I also am a huge fan of the new Commander Luke because I pitched and pushed really hard to get the yellow jacket version.
I love it.
And I had to be like, well, yeah, but he's not in the throne room. But like, also, there's a whole comic run where like that's his look following New Hope. So clearly he wore it outside of there. And it was just a great way to like.
Bought that jacket. He's gonna wear it.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna wear that jacket. He's gonna wear it well. So he was one that was kind of one of my favorites, just because of the conversation with LFL and like working through that and being like, this is I think this look for Luke is so cool. Can we get it into the game? And we wound up doing so, and so that was really fun as well.
That was my favorite, the Luke one.
It's super good.
Okay, here's a question from a viewer. During the resculpt design phase, was there ever discussion of making like a different base size for like medium type, like Grievous? He's huge, maybe bigger than a little base, but
there was. However, the range component in Legion it causes problems. So especially on certain units and stuff, right? A lot of the threat. Well, I mean, you can talk about this.
Yeah. So Legion was designed originally to have a speed 2 move be slightly under 6 inches. And there was a lot of talk about this, and we ended up going to the new movement rules, which actually break this, but that was part of the consideration, and by the time we changed the movement rules where you can place at the end of the prong on the tool instead of fully in the little cup, this actually broke this. But there was a lot of talk early on about base sizes, and now we can't do that, because then you can move farther than 6 inches in one speed 2 move, which then gets you in range. There's a cascading effects, essentially, from this. We ended up going through it all with the playtesters, but by that point it was too late to really change all the base sizes, or not change all the base sizes, but update any of the base sizes, introduce a new base size for these units, things like that. So
I admit, like, the first thing that came to my mind was it would just make, if Grievous was on a slightly bigger base and I didn't want to buy a new Grievous, my old Grievous is kind of...
Yeah, you'd have to do some rebase and stuff, and that was definitely part of the conversation too, right? Yeah. The way in which we discussed introducing a new base size, which may still happen. but thus far has not, was on new units, right? So if you got a Grievous on a slightly larger base, it would be a new Grievous, not the original Grievous, to avoid players from having to like
think of everything.
rebase things. We try to. We try to.
I hope so.
So do you plan to continue releasing characters in packs like that Heroes of the Rebellion and Pack Command, where the sort of
yes
multi-pack type characters?
We do, and the primary reason for that is it's a cost-effective measure to keep the price for individual characters low, or lower than it would be otherwise. I think if players who have been playing a long time think about how the one type of unit expansion that has crept in price significantly over time, it's the single commander, right? It started at like some crazy amount, like under $10 or $11 or something, and now we're at like 20, or maybe a little bit more now, maybe 22.
It depends on the character,
And the reason for that is because it's a lot of boring manufacturing and production reasons, but the less touches that you can have for a thing, so the more things in the box, kind of the Costco effect, if you buy in bulk, you get cheaper pricing. Cool. And so what we've done to try to like really make sure that we're not, we're giving good value to everyone across the chain and like all the way down, is to combine those characters. It also reduces SKU bloat, which is something that makes the line easier to carry. And it makes logistics and restocking a lot easier as well, because instead of having to track like 5 different products, one of them goes out. Can you do that? Oh, you don't fill up the container, now we can't ship it, we have to wait for more stuff, right? Like all these different things. There's a number of different things that go into that. It's the same with the multilingual stuff, actually, is like, yes, we're putting more cards in a box, but you're actually saving way more due to the fact that like it really is a pressure release valve for logistics and ordering and all this different stuff, because stock can be shared and warehousing. And the other big thing is like regions have different amounts that they can order, but factories have a minimum amount they will print for you. Yeah. And so if you are like from Spain, right, you might have a great community, but that community may not be big enough just based on your population size to hit a minimum. And so when we do the first initial launch and everything's tied together, it's really easy to hit those like big quantities, right? But when you come back and you're like, well, I need 1,000 of them to restock my local region in my language, that might be, half or even like more or less than the MOQ of the factory. And they'll be like, well, we're not going to do it. And of course, if you're only doing the minimums, you're paying a lot, right? Because there's no economy of scale. And so it's a lot of business stuff.
Very boring.
It can be boring depending on like where your mind is. It's the non-game portion a lot of my job and what I'm doing, and working with the great people at Asmodee and production and all that stuff, because they do all the publishing and manufacturing. But when we're structuring these releases, that's something that we're always keeping in mind, and we're looking for ways to make sure that the line is easy to carry for distribution, for retailers, that it's globally available, and that the price in the end of the day is going to be, the best value possible for the players. So you're gonna get more characters and more boxes. The bonus of this, though, is that it means that you're just gonna get more characters faster, right? Because whenever we decide we want to do one character, we kind of have to do 2 more at minimum. And so that's kind of exciting, because it means that it really breaks open the door for like, if we ever get to, say, a Jedi, somebody wants a Plo Koon, a mace, take your pick, right? You're probably gonna wind up with both those and maybe another one, and things like that. So, it's from a game expansion perspective and all of that part's really exciting, even if you're like, oh, I wish I could cherry pick, but also just know that, if you were cherry picking, those prices would be rising very quickly because of all of the savings that are involved in those boxes. So we're doing this specifically for the players to be able to have that value, as well as everyone else along the chain too.
Thanks. I'm gonna check that we're all still in frame. I think we've been drifting this way. Only one of which is serious.
Okay.
Here's the last, hard ball.
Here we go.
Are the custom characters going to be comparable in power to our iconic heroes, and how so? And are there plans to keep expanding the custom unit type vibe?
I'll take the first half. You take the second half.
All right, got it.
So there is a huge design element to making the custom characters. That is, we do not want them to overshadow the iconic characters of the setting, right? That isn't to say that they're going to be bad, right? Right? It's just, if we have a character that could do something similar to Leia, we want to make sure that the custom character is worse than Leia at doing that, but maybe does something else in addition, or something like that, or maybe is a better fighter but is also an exemplar, or things like that, right? And we did that for all of the different custom characters. So if you want a really aggressive super tactical droid, take Kraken. If you want a slightly less aggressive in terms of army support super tactical droid, but you want to have a cool blaster cannon, you take this guy that you make up the name for. Who knows who that could be?
So a little bit less than the ones that we have, but you can mix and match all of those things. So it's like, well, I want a bit of Luke, a bit of Leia. It's not as good as any of them, but it's doing all of that at once.
Exactly.
You definitely can't go into those kits and rebuild Darth Vader, for instance. Right? You can't go in there and rebuild Lando. You're going to be able to get kind of close to some of those things they do. You're going to get some unique stuff for they do, but it's that customization, it's that mixing your chocolate and your peanut butter in various ratios. That's really what makes those things sing.
And I think a lot of the iconic characters have very specific things that they do that is not available to the custom characters. So, unique characters? I don't know. You guys get it. The unique characters are very specific in what they do, and the custom characters don't have those specifics inside of their kits. They got to do other things.
Everybody's so excited about those custom guys.
I mean, they're cool.
They're so cool.
They're super cool. We've been painting them up in the office, so everyone's making their own.
You gotta have everybody make one in the whole company and be like,
I mean, we're gonna be featuring a bunch of them on hobby blogs as we get closer and stuff. Everyone's writing little stories for their characters and stuff internally. It's very exciting.
It's gonna definitely be like the most exciting reveal whenever we get to see the full sprue that comes in the box.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then as far as are there plans to make more? It's absolutely a space that we want to explore more going forward in the future. I mean, obviously a big omission just currently is custom clone commander, right? I think that's one that's very easy to point at and be like, yes, this is definitely a thing that you can see coming in the line. But there's other ones too, right? I think you can pick anything in Star Wars and say, oh, I would like to build my own of that. I want to build my own Wookiee. I want to build my own bounty hunter. I want to build my own Ewok. I don't know. I want to build my own Ewok. Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. So again, I think well, this is just the start. It's definitely not the finish. How those things roll out and when they do is obviously going to be based on internal development timelines and what's best for the game and where we're going with that stuff. But I would absolutely expect that this is something that, provided that when these initial ones come out and players really gravitate towards them and they're doing well within the game and people are really excited about it still, which I believe that they will be, who doesn't want to create their own Star Wars characters, right, and get to play them on a tabletop with Legion?
I'll say the development of these characters is wild.
Yeah.
There's so many permutations you have to check and work inside of and do those kind of things with that they're very complicated to make, but I think it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Right? The increased development time, the increased development effort that goes into them is absolutely worth it.
They're so cool.
Out of it.
Yeah. And I think people who don't play every faction or still might get out of faction.
Yeah,
I don't play Republic, but I'm gonna make a Jedi guy.
Who's not gonna make it? Everyone wants to make a Jedi, right? Yeah, absolutely.
So I asked you this on Thursday. I would assume you might have a different answer by now.
Oh, okay.
So the question is, for both of you, what's the highlight of Adepticon so far?
Sure.
As it draws to a close.
I am really enjoying the league play. We have a lot of different leagues going on here for all the different games, and the leagues are designed to allow the players to tell stories and do those kind of things. So we're setting up at the front and we're giving out the league materials and we're talking to the players, we're giving their cards and their prize tickets and things like that, and hearing all the stories. Now that we're on day 4, right, they've got all the elements of their stories from the different leagues. Hearing their story and how they've gone through it in their games and the impact that it's had has been so cool. Just from a narrative perspective, to allow players the option to tell their stories, right, in all the different games.
Yeah.
It's been very, very, very cool.
I've been doing Shatterpoint. I had to go knock on a safe house, and
exactly, right.
And I got a bomb, something blew up, and now I've got justice.
Justice must be served.
So I'm going to lay those all out and concoct, there'll be a more cohesive narrative. Later.
Yeah,
that's the summary.
Yeah,
that's the elevator pitch to. I'm gonna give that to Disney.
There you go.
Make a movie. We'll do it. I don't know, seeing how it all flows together, and then how each person puts their own flavor onto it as well, right? Because we left a lot of the story elements very open, so the players can fill in the details between the lines, right?
Right. That's exactly what I was doing with the one, it said, oh, this objective is labeled as treacherous, and if you end your turn near it, you'll take this negative effect. I'm like, well, I just set off a bomb, and I think there's just like a radioactive zone in the middle of the map now, and Kanan is getting some radiation sickness while Luke is back there just kind of like hanging out on the point, and Kanan's doing all the work. It's kind of fun.
That's how it works, man. Kanan's lower on the tier of the Jedi Order.
That is one of my absolute favorite things about games in general, but Star Wars games in particular, is like, obviously things are very abstracted as you do things, and just coming up with my own narrative for like what this mini is now over there and this happened, like if that were how do I describe that, and why is that funny or exciting or whatever. That's one of my favorite things to do on the tables.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think my big thing has just been seeing the excitement since Friday over all the announcements, right? And just seeing folks be energized and salivating for the future. And that goes for like all of the different games, all of the different players. And the energy just kind of shifts a little bit after that Friday night. Like people are excited and ready to play when they get here. And then we get to reveal a lot of cool stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I love what I'm doing now, but I can't wait for the future. And that's, we work like multiple years to get to those roadmap points. So it's really nice to be like, oh, 2 years well spent, 3 years well spent, right?
Definitely. Just on our
bit of a relief.
Little Discord, I've seen a lot of people's like Legion excitement go, oh.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, the mark of a great roadmap, but also just the mark of, a healthy and vibrant community, and the fact that, we're doing our due diligence to shepherd it and hopefully take it into that next step with big growth coming in the year with the new starters and everything else. And that goes along with like all of the games, right? Like just making sure that people have a place to come, tell their stories, have fun, create amazing artwork in their miniatures, and join up and share it all this and every year at Adepticon.
All right. Last question is going to be from 125 Star Wars.
All right, let's go.
Oh boy.
Random flip.
Someone give me a number between 1 and 125.
32.
Good number.
Okay, we're in creatures.
Oh boy.
Would you rather ride a Rancor or a Bantha?
Bantha.
That's kind of easy one.
Rancor.
Rancor's gonna eat me.
Nah, Rancor.
Bantha.
The
Okay, first of all, like go on a tour of whatever town you're in. It was nice.
The Bantha is covered in fur on a desert planet. Like, you know how sweaty you're gonna get?
Yeah,
There's
true.
a lot of chafing that's gonna go on there. The Rancor is dry and lizard-like. Like, it's gonna be pretty smooth.
It's gonna buck you.
Yeah, until it eats you.
Look, I'm assuming that I've been trained. Am I going in?
Did Danny Trejo hook you up with?
Am I going in like with no training? Do I just have to ride it like immediately right now? I'm assuming that I have the skills to ride the thing that I'm picking.
My first thought was like, I'm at the county fair, and they're like, hey.
Oh, and they just have like on the thing?
Yeah, it's on like a.
I've ridden an elephant before those things. I'm sure the Rancor is the same way. It's tame.
It's bipedal.
It's fine. You're gonna have this large cage. You're just gonna like sit on top of it. It's not gonna be able to lift its arms. Like they're just gonna lead it around on some droid-controlled contraption. Then you're gonna get off.
Droid with a like rope.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fine. Rancor way better. I'm not in for the chase.
I don't know. Banthas are cute.
Yeah, you can brush
They probably
his teeth
smell
afterwards.
terrible though.
Yeah, I mean they're furry and they smell bad. I'm not in.
All right. That is going to do it for our interview. Unless
What a
you
way
guys
to
are
wrap
dying
up.
For another one.
I need another one.
All right. I'll give you a number.
110.
Some of these are bad, so we'll see.
Even better.
Choose between these tough jobs: bartender in the Mos Eisley Cantina or server on Jabba's sail barge. And I'm going to put it out there: you do not know ahead of time that Jabba's sail barge is going to explode.
Oh. Well, that's rough. I'm going to go with sail barge simply because, like, I imagine that I get a steady paycheck, but he can't take that barge out very often. Like, I feel like that only gets rolled out every so often.
Yeah.
So it's a steady gig with, like, not a lot of work.
That's true.
And there's, like, when you're there, the Max Rebo's around.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing, like, it's fine.
You get to see executions. When it goes out, you know you're going to see somebody get shoved in.
That's right. I'm
weird
sure
hole.
sometimes he's just, like, going from town to town. It's not always to go to the Sarlacc. The great pit of Carcoon.
I think I'm on the Tatooine one though, because I like talking to people and there's
Like
a lot of wild
Mos Eisley?
stuff. Or Mos Eisley. Yeah.
You are going to see a wider. I feel like the people who are on Jabba's sail barge, that circulation of characters is
it's
probably
small.
pretty static.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, you're going to get better tips because they're going to know you.
That's true.
Yeah, but there's going to be like a third of them.
It's fine.
I will take 3 times as many tips that are smaller.
All right. I would just like to point out that in 5 minutes in a bar, what we see is a big bar brawl that ends in some man's arm getting sliced off by what's supposed to be an extinct wizard.
He's fine.
And then you have a shootout at one of your tables, which leaves a corpse that the guy just throws you like two shillings at.
He's also
to, like,
fine.
clean it up. Like, I'm not in for this. Like, that's one day, and
Yeah, you might be the guy who has to mop up the arm on the floor.
That might be a calm day in that place. Like, already
That was the one that wasn't cauterized.
our subset of data it's
very bad for both.
It's very bad.
One explodes.
Also, you have to say no to droids, which is sad. Depending on the era.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, you're not even allowed to have droids in there. We don't serve
know.
your kind.
I don't know about that.
Well, you'll have to think about it more. There you go.
All right. Let us know in the comments what Legion thing you're most excited about, but more importantly, if you would rather ride a Bantha or a Rancor, and where you'd like to work on Tatooine. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
A great interview, a great Adepticon. Thanks for
Thank
talking to me. This has been great. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope everyone's excited about what's to come from Atomic Mass Games.
I'm excited.
Ah!